Here, the weather is becoming worse. There has been some snowfall. It has been chilly. Everyone is performing admirably as we approach the end of the season. It couldn't be done, according to the elders. I couldn't mine the widow's cut since it was a frozen tomb. However, they never imagined the secret weapon that Parker Schnabel possessed: lasers. His crew searched the land using sophisticated drones and LAR mapping, discovered a secret route, and opened a treasure that had been lost for many years. However, as soon as the gold began to flow, something even deeper was buried when the ground beneath him started to tremble. The golden secret of the death trap. Even the most resilient workers won't venture into some areas of the crazy Klondike gold mining industry. They have names that are passed down over campfires, accompanied by tales of mishaps, financial disaster, and shattered equipment. It continued to be reasonably successful. Gold was still being discovered. One of such locations was the Widow's Cut. It was a collapsed mine shaft that was so notoriously harsh and dangerous that mining it was thought to be impossible. Nor was it merely superstition. The location was a problem for geology. To begin with, deep permafrost covered the entire region. Now, we're not just talking about frozen mud here. For thousands of years, this ground has been frozen solid, as hard as concrete. I appreciate you finishing this. Means a great deal. Like you guys fought through a tremendous amount of terrain and logistics that we're not used to in this situation. The persistent, horrifying fear of multi-ton slabs of rock and frozen earth suddenly exploding and crushing everything or anybody underneath was present in any attempt to drill into it. And if that wasn't frightening enough, there was always the possibility of a devastating flood. Millions of dollars worth of heavy machinery may be destroyed in a matter of seconds. If a small amount of meltwater or a secret subsurface spring turned the shaft into a watery grave, one mistake there might mean the difference between your season and your life. However, Parker Schnabel noticed something that no one else did. When most miners saw the Widow's Cut, they assumed it would fail. When Parker Schnabel saw it, he saw the greatest chance of his life. He's just built that way. Parker has been a gambler since he was a little boy, learning from his renowned grandfather, John Schnabel. He has consistently pushed for greater ambitions, more land and more gold than anyone could have imagined. Based on our methodology and determining the most effective way to accomplish things, I anticipate some calibration issues. Like those issues are to be expected. Parker mixes that grit with an unrelenting youthful drive, while his competitors, like his Tony Beats, may rely on decades of old-school experience. He had more in mind than simply having a successful season. He was aiming for a 7,000-ounce objective, which would solidify his position as the Klondike's unquestioned ruler. To him, seeing the Widow's Cut, a location that everyone fears, was not a warning sign. In actuality, it was an invitation. He reasoned that whatever gold was down there was his to take if no one else had the courage to do it. He was staking his whole business on a geological death trap, which was an enormous risk. However, Parker was about to demonstrate that the greatest rewards are often the ones that come with the greatest risks. The old-timers could never have imagined the secret weapon he possessed. Parker made the decision to fight smart, not just hard, when faced with an impossible task. He brought the big weaponry, high-tech eyeballs in the sky, to fight the permafrost instead of using dozers and excavators. A cutting-edge LiDAR system, which is transforming the mining industry, was released by Parker and his team. LiDAR is an acronym for light detection and ranging, you see, and it does tasks that are nearly magical. It produces an extremely accurate three-dimensional map of the terrain by directing millions of laser pulses at the ground. They flew over every square inch of the intimidating terrain using this laser technology, in conjunction with sophisticated drone imaging. Their superpower came from this combo. They were able to sketch out the Earth's contours in a way that had previously been impossible, since they could see through the dense vegetation and trees. It was a huge benefit. Parker's team was creating a flawless digital model of the Widow's Cut, while other groups were speculating and digging without a plan. But it's an extra expense at the moment. It's not yet ready for sleuthing, but we can prepare it with a little ripping. They were searching for a vulnerability, a secret route, or a way to access the treasure trove. They discovered something that had been lost for decades as the data continued to come in. The lasers brought about a spectacular advance. A perfectly straight man-made anomaly, a collapsed vertical shaft, was discovered on the LAR map beneath a century's worth of tangled wilderness and detritus. Invisible to the unaided eye, it was a forgotten artifact from the original mining operation. It was more than 40 meters deep, according to their exact measurements. That's over 130 feet. Right down into the blackness. It was this. This was their covert entryway. They could have used this existing shaft rather than attempting to excavate a whole new ramp, which would have required a costly and risky battle against the permafrost. It was a wonderful yet terrible plan. To stabilize the previous shaft's collapsing walls, the crew set to work dragging in enormous reinforced steel beams. Every scrape of the excavator reverberated in the perilous silence, making the task laborious and nerve-wracking. However, they succeeded in creating a sufficiently secure route down into the center of the mine, with Parker's knowledgeable team in the forefront. They had a direct line to the prize after weeks of frustration. However, nobody was ready for what awaited them at the bottom, not even Parker. The team knew they had hit the mother lode as soon as they arrived at the bottom of that stable shaft. They discovered something amazing. A vein of brilliant gold, undisturbed quartz, glittered in their lights. Parker's on-site geologist declared it to be the richest and purest natural deposit he had ever seen in his career, because it was so immaculate and pure. I believe it would be difficult for you. For some, it would be a full-time job. Time was of the essence. The team started working with a desperate, frenzied attitude, because they knew that rumors of their finding may draw claim jumpers. Driven by excitement and the sight of all that gold, they labored non-stop. This is where things start to get very crazy. After 3 days of tireless work, they were able to recover over 4,000 ounces of gold in under 72 hours. They calculated that the value of just one cleanup was more than $10 million. In one amazing weekend, the season-saving haul paid for their gasoline, salaries, and running expenses. This amazing score was only a small sample of the real treasure that was hidden further inside the soil. But the gamble had paid off handsomely. The lottery prize of $75 million. The team's geologist had even more startling news. But that $10 million shell was a game-changer. He discovered that the enormous quartz vein was much bigger than anyone had anticipated. After studying its geology, it extended beyond their small room. It went deeper beneath the surface, much farther. The researchers determined that it extended for a further 2 km. After making some fast calculations based on the vein's thickness and anticipated length, it's roughly 1¼ miles. The numbers really start to go crazy at this point, considering the extraordinarily abundant gold they had previously extracted. I believe that the majority of this run was in ditches. Get your gravel then. We're in the right place if that's a sign of things to come. They used the entire 2 km vein to run the numbers. The potential worth was enormous. $75 million more. This season would not only be a success if they succeeded, but it would be the most successful season in gold rush history. It was the type of fine miners who dream of it all their life. However, Parker realized that his greatest battle was only getting started after making such a significant discovery. A $75 million secret cannot be kept in the Klondike. The news of Parker's attack on the Widow's Cut quickly spread like wildfire around the gold fields. All of a sudden, there was conversation. What Parker had discovered had rival miners, interested residents, and even government inspectors talking. Parker was ahead of the game, but the pressure was on. He had previously ensured that the claim was legally his. This score was not being shared by anyone. This wasn't just a stroke of luck for Parker. All of the years of sacrifice, risk, and hard effort were validated by this. The rumors began to spread throughout the Yukon. Was the greatest gold strike of the 21st century really recently accomplished by Parker Schnabel? Had he changed the game's rules? Gold was no longer the only consideration. It had to do with power. Parker was now the most influential person in the Yukon, and a whole new set of risks accompanied that title. Now that he had discovered the riches, he needed to defend his realm. All of a sudden, Parker felt a tremendous burden. Everyone was keeping an eye on him, since he had a $75 million reward laying beneath his feet. The entire Klondike was shaken by the discovery. Prices for land can soar. The area may be overrun with new miners hoping to strike it lucky. Parker's youthful staff is under a great deal of strain. Under such scrutiny, could they manage a large, multi-year operation? Or will everything fall apart due to the fame, money, and high expectations? This was the real exam. Parker had shown that he was capable of finding gold. He had endured harsh winters, frozen terrain, and equipment failures. However, this was not like the others. This was his opportunity to leave a lasting legacy and become as famous as his grandfather was. Some claim he was fortunate, while others attribute it to his unparalleled intuition. For whatever reason, Parker Schnabel just made a king's ransom out of a death trap. One thing is certain, but the story is far from over. The Klondike monarch just demonstrated to the world what a true jackpot looks like. When the scandal started, the Assay Reports Inc. had only dried. It began as rumors in Dawson City saloons and progressed to social media posts that went viral. The ludicrous allegation that Parker had received a life sentence for environmental offenses quickly spread. Naturally, it was an unfounded falsehood, a work of digital fiction probably concocted by a rival with too much free time. But a lie can cause more harm than a damaged dozer in the fiercely competitive industry of gold mining. Parker was unprepared for this new kind of warfare, which required him to spend valuable time and money on public relations and attorneys as a result of the rumor. The sophistication of the attacks increased. The validity of his claim on the widow's cut was contested in court by a shell company connected to a dubious global consortium. They appeared to have a rightful claim to the land, based on a number of falsified documents dating back a century. Parker, who had previously resolved conflicts with a screaming battle or a handshake, was suddenly caught up in a maze of legal wrangling that would drain him before he could take out another ounce of gold. That's crazy. A beginning. Mitch, we're on the board. That's a very great pan. His competitors started to circle after smelling blood in the water. In particular, Tony Beets appeared to enjoy Parker's situation, patronizingly advising Parker in public, while subtly stoking the legal dispute behind the scenes. Parker Schnabel's crew was beginning to crumble under the heat. Everything had gone smoothly at the start of the mining season. Everyone believed in the dream, worked hard, and laughed around. Now, however, everything was different. The simple friendships vanished, to be replaced by distrust, annoyance, and subdued bitterness. Instead of being a time for celebration, it had become a simmering pot that was about to blow up. From the widow's cut, Parker and his group had extracted gold, valued at $10 million. The haul was among the largest they had ever seen. Arguments were what people expected instead of applause, champagne, and smiles. Disputes arose over who should receive the largest bonus. Some employees called for safer working conditions or less hours. Others feared that the mine might suddenly collapse once more. Good employees were becoming ticking time bombs due to the stress. It was not much better outside the mine. Some crew members began partying hard in town, since they weren't used to having so much money and notoriety. Their outrageous actions, drinking, smashing expensive automobiles, and fighting in bars quickly garnered media attention. Reporters began to fly around like vultures. Well done. To the people that support you along the path and help you get started, but aren't here to share, this is dedicated to you. Let's get rid of that one. Parker had spent his entire life trying to gain respect, and now he was witnessing his team become the subject of tabloid rumors. As a leader, he had always remained in the thick of things. He carried dirt, operated the machinery, and gave his men confidence and grit. However, he was now more interested in fighting fires than in prospecting for gold. His formerly devoted workforce was gradually becoming a collection of irate people, each one preoccupied with their own income and notoriety. However, neither the press nor the mine posed the greatest threat. Parker's own mind was harboring it. He began to doubt himself after months of pressure, landowners' legal threats, and litigation rumors. Every choice felt dangerous. His team's remarks all sounded insulting. Each shadow appeared to be a trap. It felt like everything was collapsing the more he fought to keep it all together. Parker had become a legend, thanks to the gold from the widow's cut. He was being referred to as a genius, a contemporary prospector, who used only his courage and lasers to strike it rich. Parker, however, wasn't having a party. He tried to protect his castle from all sides, feeling like a monarch under siege. Once an exciting dream, it now felt like a jail. Parker also harbored a dark secret. The simple part was finding the treasure. Will Parker withstand the strain or fail miserably? Tell us in the comments section.